Like to call to order, what is today's date? February 21st, 2024 ARC meeting. At present, we have Patrick Tregenza, Ed Hunter, Eric Palmer, and Shelley Schmidt. Absent are Justin Pauly, Payam Ostabar, and Kimberly Turgan. So we do have a quorum. Would you like to announce the staff members?
Staff members present today are Principal Planner Fernanda Roveri, Planning Manager Levi Hill, Senior Associate Planner Chris Schmidt, and Recording Secretary Spencer Argenbright.
And can you also announce how people can weigh in online? Thank you.
Yes. Information on participating in this meeting and providing public comment, including remotely by Zoom or by telephone, is on this meeting's agenda, which is online at isearchmonterey.org. Remote commenters will be muted until it is their turn to speak, and a timer will be shown on the screen. If you are connected on Zoom, the timer is accurate with no delay. In the chamber, we recommend keeping phones and devices muted to prevent audio interference with the meeting. Thank you for participating in your city government.
Thanks, Spencer. Let's move right to the consent agenda. I'm sorry.
We acknowledge that Payam also
Oh,
is
I
present.
wasn't looking closely. I didn't have my glasses on. So yeah, hi Payam. Our committee member Payam Ostabar has joined. And we're done with that part of it. So we're going to open the consent agenda, and all that's on there is the approval of the minutes. So did anybody see anything that they want to address? I entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I
Or to
move
approve
that
the
we
consent agenda.
approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, Shelley seconds. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions because of they weren't here? I guess we were all here. Okay, good. So that passes. We'd like to open up for public comments of any items that are not on today's agenda. Anybody in the audience? Anybody online?
I see no attendees with their hands raised.
Okay, we're going to move on to the first public appearance item, consider 2000 Garden Road. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's just who's going to present for this? Mr. Schmidt?
Yes, thank you, Chair. My name is Chris Schmidt. I'm a Senior Associate Planner for the city. And I've been working with the applicant on this project site for a couple of years now. And so today, what we're having the ARC look at today is a little different than our typical procedure. We have the city accepts concept review applications. So the ARC is not going to make any formal decision on the project today. It's strictly an opportunity to provide feedback to the applicant. Anyway, so we're looking at 2000 Garden Road, and the staff recommendation is that the ARC provide comments regarding the project, consider the policies and development standards that apply, and have a discussion about the project. So just some background about the Garden Road area and this specific site. So in 2019, the council approved ordinance amendments to allow up to 405 multifamily units, residential units to be located along Garden Road, specifically I believe just the south side of Garden Road. This specific site, 2000 Garden Road, had previously contained a 26,000 square foot commercial building. It contained a gym, and it had been vacant for quite some time. In 2022, the ARC reviewed a project at that building. It was for a multifamily conversion of the building. However, the applicant has since revised their plans for that site, and that structure was demolished in 2022. So what we're looking at today is a new building. It's a 70,188 square foot building. It would be 4-story multifamily condo building. 30 units are proposed at this time. All would be 2-bedroom units that range from about 1,100 or almost 1,200 square feet to almost 1,600 square feet. There are 48 parking spaces proposed between maintaining an existing surface lot as well as new garage parking spaces at the bottom level of the building. And then there are also balconies proposed for each unit, which kind of range from 84 to 144 square feet. So here's the site. I just wanted to note the adjacent uses. So on both sides of, east and west of the lot, we have commercial office uses. I think there's typically medical office or other professional office uses. The golf course to the north, and then residential. This is county land to the south across the highway. And I will note there, we don't have any aerials that show the since demolished building, but if you can imagine, there's no building there anymore. And here we see the site plan. So the proposed building would sit in almost the same footprint. It would be expanded a little bit more than the previous structure. And if you can see my mouse, the existing parking lot here would be converted to some format of open space. We don't have the full details on what that might look like, but that's one of the staff comments, and probably would request that the ARC provide some further discussion on what they might would like to see in an open space area like this. And so there are two driveways at the site. You can see where the arrows are shown. These are existing. Right now you can enter from this west side, and there's a existing parking lot, as I mentioned here, but the parking lot also continues in this direction. The southwest side, many of those spaces would remain, and then new spaces, as I mentioned, would be constructed in the lower level of the building. I will note the circulation of the site would be as such, where you enter from this west side and essentially drive through the lowest level, garage level, and then exit through a driveway ramp that connects with the existing drive on this side. And also worth noting is a number of tree removals associated with the project would be proposed, and you can kind of see those highlighted with the blue and red notes here. So some of them in the footprint of the building, others outside of the footprint, are either very close to the building or are in poor condition, essentially based on the arborist report. And I totally forgot I had a zoomed in view, so you can see all of those things slightly better here. But again, drive on the west side to exit through the east, open space on the north side. So this is a typical floor plan for the 2-bedroom units. This is with the smaller of the two decks, the 84 square foot deck. And as you can see, the units include two bedrooms, a living room, dining area, kitchen. Each unit would have their own laundry equipment, washer dryer, and then a bathroom as well. And here's that garage level. It does include the majority of the parking spaces, storage for each unit, as you can see here, kind of along the north side and on the southeast side. Bicycle storage, mechanical rooms, electrical rooms, waste enclosures. And then the main level, the first residential level, and then each level is I think almost an exact mirror copy. So each level would have 10 units. Very similar floor plans. Some of the units are a little bit larger, so you can see in the middle here. These are slightly larger balconies, but effectively very similar floor plans. Second floor, very much the same, and third floor. Moving on to the elevation. So this is the north elevation and front elevation. This is what would be visible from Garden Road. This would be adjacent to that north open space area. And you can see we have a kind of a number of different colors and generally all the same kind of materials, a stucco exterior, metal awnings, cable railings. I think these are white vinyl windows and doors at the balconies. This is the west side elevation. So this is if you were to drive down the driveway on the west side, this is where you would drive through the garage. And you can see that waste enclosure on the right-hand side. And then the other side. And it's difficult to see, but there's at the kind of the corner of that driveway from the garage level. So cars would drive through there and drive up a new ramp to access the street. And the rear elevation. And I will note that driveway, there's kind of I don't know what you call this type of rendering or design, but it kind of shows what that geometrically would look like as you would exit out of the garage there. So in terms of consistency with the city's zoning requirements, the project is generally consistent with these items: setbacks, lot coverage, parking locations outside of the front yard setback, unit density, bicycle parking. It includes laundry. The laundry requirement is 1 washer and 1 dryer per 5 units. And so obviously each are provided for each unit. And then storage is also required. There are some inconsistencies that the applicant and the staff can work through some various processes that are in the city code. But generally, the height requirement in the IR zone is 35 feet. The proposed height is 49 feet. The open space requirement is 600 square feet per unit, which can be a mix of private open space from the balconies and then also shared open space. 484 square feet or close to 500 square feet are proposed per unit. The parking requirement is 60 spaces, 2 per unit. 48 are proposed. The landscaping requirement is 20% of the lot size is the minimum requirement. We don't have that specific detail yet, but it's something that can be done based on the proposed site plan. Lighting is required to be directed downward. We don't have those full details yet either. And then tree preservation. Essentially, the multifamily overlay zone requires that healthy trees be preserved, healthy groups of trees be preserved if possible. And in the case of this project, 14 are proposed for removal. They include a mix of Monterey pines and coast live oaks. And based on albeit older arborist report, the health ranges from dead, poor, and fair. So none of the proposed trees for removal are in good condition based on the arborist report. Other considerations, and again, these are preliminary plans, and we will have more complete plans, but grading and cut and fill are not shown. The slopes and retaining walls that would be needed for the project would need to be shown. The final pervious versus impervious surfaces are not shown, and the stormwater requirements, no stormwater control plan has been provided yet. Open space areas will need to be clearly measured and defined once we have a better landscape and site plan of the open space area. The parking would be required, and the staff can work through some of those parking requirements with the applicant. More information on the tree, the current status of trees, and whether some of those trees need to be removed for different reasons, health related reasons versus development related reasons. And then the city code does require crime prevention through environmental design. And so we could work through those design elements with the applicant. And then the final architectural style and finishes can be further defined. And then lastly, again, there's no specific landscaping plan for this project, so additional detail on that, based on potentially comments from the ARC would be necessary, and then some final details on the trash collection would be required. So with that, staff recommends that the ARC do a concept review.
Thank you, Chris. Are there any committee questions for Chris? While we've got him here.
Chris, I'm not sure if I misread the agenda packet. Was there originally 44 spaces?
You did not misread it. The report, I think, did list 44, but they do, I counted them again today, and it is 48.
48. And in the original proposed project that we reviewed before it was demolished, the building was demolished, what do you know the parking?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I can go back and look if you'd like.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to become known as the parking stickler.
Chris, what's the, I know there's no landscape tree plan yet, but what is like the proposed ratio of replacement, or just out of curiosity? I mean, we're removing a dozen trees, something like that?
Yeah, so it depends on, so the city has kind of a two-pronged process. So trees that are removed related to health reasons go through the forestry division, and the forestry office has their own replacement requirements, really often the same, but for development related tree removals, which I think it's 10 of the trees are kind of directly impacted by the project. The tree removal section allows up to 3 replacement, basically 0 to 3 replacement trees per tree.
And does it have to be in the property, like on the property, or can it be elsewhere?
It can be elsewhere. The staff typically prefers to have them on site.
I noticed red versus blue on the plan. What was the difference between those trees? It looked like some were maybe just at risk by the
I think that
drive,
had
the
to
new
do
drive or
with
something.
more of I think the blue. I can't
Blues
remember.
had X's, red looked like it didn't, but I just,
Yeah, some of them. Yeah, you're right. Some of them were related to the health of the tree and kind of severe, potential hazard trees versus trees that are in the development impact area.
also, I think your office shared this last time, but multimodal transportation, so some sense of what that connectivity is to just adjacent bike paths, bus routes, things like that would be helpful in evaluating the parking, et cetera, just making sure we have that whole picture.
Sure.
I guess that was, if you have that available right now would be my question.
Oh,
I jumped right into recommendations, but
I don't know the exact services that are provided in that area. I don't think there's Fernanda, is there a completed bike trail along Garden Road? I think there is one. Yeah.
Yes,
think it
there
was, yeah,
there
but-
are bike lanes on both sides of the street, and then there are bus stops. But I think there's only like 3 MST bus routes that stop there, but they're very infrequent, maybe like 3 times a day.
Thank you. Chris, can you refresh my memory? How many units were in the original plan to reuse the garden racquetball building?
Yeah, there were 34 units proposed as part of that project.
And now we're at 30?
Right.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, and I think the prior project, correct me if I'm wrong, the prior project was more of an apartment focused project.
Yes, the reason for the reduction is the Monterey Water Management District has changed their ability to use gray water recycling. And so we were using that program to enhance the amount of units that we could get, but they've since removed it. So we can no longer use extra water. So now we're down to 30.
Okay, so that's a water issue, not a, okay. So,
Yeah,
So-
so the allowed density at this site would be 30 units per acre. The proposal, I think, is for 17 units per acre. So they could potentially do more, if they had the water.
So just to get it on the record, we have in the audience Paul Davis and Brad Slamma, who are the architect and the owner's representatives with us. I don't know if you guys want to just stay where you are, or should we have them come up to the dais so they'll get mic'd? Why don't you stand up and so we can start asking you guys some questions and telling you how great we think your project is. Now, Brad, are you Bree's cousin?
That is my sister.
That's your sister. Okay. Okay. All right. Because my daughter's in musical theater, so
Oh, wow.
we know
They
Bree
must be
really,
close.
really well. Yeah, they do. So, well, I'd like to just say thank you for, helping us put a dent in our state mandated, $3,700 units or whatever we're supposed to come up with. So I think it's fantastic. And I think we were a little confused when we okayed the original one and then we ended up getting torn down. And then when it was like, well, they had a demolition permit the whole time. So that didn't need to come before us. But yeah, does the committee have any questions or you guys want to make a little presentation first?
Maybe so. I mean,
Yeah.
we really were trying to smash units in an old building.
Yeah.
That was, and there were even questions about, the concrete panel walls and all that kind of stuff. So I think at that point, and then probably when we lost units, it just needed to be a new project. So.
Yeah, when we lost the water credits for the units, it's no longer, it was financially viable to do 30 in that and make it work
I
at the
think-
And
conversion.
in that old building, I think we had just studios and one bedroom. So it's a much better project.
Yeah, I prefer to convert. The project that we're doing at 2300 Garden right now is a perfect example of doing that. And we've done quite a few in downtown Salinas, one in El Dorado as well. If we can do it, we will. Just both these sites that we're at, it just didn't work out.
I understand. Any questions?
I guess I had two. I mean, there was a few points mentioned, the height of the building. Do you want to talk to us about that and maybe?
That's the main reason for
also?
this. Yes. The two things that are big for us are A, the height of the building. As I look at it, I reference it off of Garden Road, not the actual height of the building. I believe that a lot of it is essentially subterranean and hidden. And most of it will be quite hidden from Highway 68 as landscaping goes in. So from Garden Road, it'll look like a 1.5-story building. It won't look that big. And
And
it's
the topography of that site is the worst
it's
on Garden Road. So
yeah, it's definitely a tough one. And then parking. If we want to leave it at 48 and have front landscaping and keep the parking out of the front setback, then we can be at 48 and have some street parking. If we don't mind having parking in the front setback as it currently is, we can get to the natural 2-to-1 ratio and be to 60, but we would have a little bit of an inlet there for some parking.
yeah, that would cut into the outdoor landscaping and outdoor space, active space that we can develop in that setback between the building and Garden Road. That would, it's like
Yeah, that's why great reasons to be here and have the conversation. What's more
parking
advantageous?
or outside, outside space for the residents.
So
This-
my concern with the parking, while we're just talking about, sorry, is I know as you go further down Garden Road, parking becomes a little bit more of an issue as I guess the number of businesses and uses increase as you're going towards the airport. But I do know that section of Garden, there's not a whole lot there. And so I have concern with the offsite parking, but in that particular area, I don't think it's as bad. I think as you get closer to the airport, people tend to park their cars and then go on their trips, and then those cars sit there, and then it's kind of gets crowded there. But at that portion, I know there's not very much up there. And there's also a bus stop not too far up the hill. There's a bench, I think, a bus bench. So that was my concern with the parking.
This is a great opportunity we rarely get is to give our opinion on something.
Sorry, before opinions, can we take public comment?
Oh, absolutely. I didn't realize that we had to do that. Is that, because it is an agenda item? Okay.
Yeah.
So before we get on to comments, is there any public comments? Anybody in the room? I don't see it. Anybody online, Spencer?
There are no attendees with their hands raised.
Okay, great. Thank you for the reminder, Fernanda. So I'll start off with just, one of my comments was I'm familiar with that lot, that site. It is, quite a grade down to the building and it's set down quite a bit from the road. But I would personally like to see, it screened from the road nonetheless with, some Monterey pines and Monterey cypresses and coastal oaks and native stuff like that. And I'd prefer to have no cars in front, I mean, if we can get away with 48, I hope to think that we're moving away from every household having two to three cars. And maybe in the future we'll have, fewer and people will be walking, biking and taking public transit. So, I would like to stick with, the 48 spaces personally over, especially if we had, the only alternative was to have cars right in front. I like the design of the drive-through that goes underneath. It seems safe. It kind of keeps the cars out of sight. And yeah, that's about all I have.
I guess I still had a question. I really appreciate staff's comments and additional items that we'd want to see, retaining walls, trash enclosures, all these different things. That's obviously going to be very helpful. With regards to the crime prevention design, what is staff's understanding of that? And then what is the design team's understanding? It'd just be nice to hear that, to see what their thoughts are on that and approach at this time.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with, placement of the building itself, and then, where your landscaping might be placed in relation to your lighting, for example, in your parking lots, trying not to create blind spots and those types of things with your landscaping or with your accessory buildings. We haven't had a ton of discussion on how we can ensure we meet those policies, but in this case, because it's one building and you're not having lots of buildings kind of scattered, I think that it's something that is fairly achievable, this project.
If you want to just nod, that's fine. Also, if you have.
Yeah, I think one of the things for the garage specifically would just be to have potentially a garage door, happy-speed garage door that would open and close, that can at least provide one person in the family the ability to park underneath. That might be the more exposed person to any kind of an issue.
Great, thank you. Just with regards to that part of why, go ahead.
And also just the units that face Garden Road would probably be eyes on that open space as well. So.
Great, thank you. That actually segues a little more into maybe where I was heading with some recommendations, which are similar to last time. I think we're just talking about a place like this that's a little more remote. People are going to be, these are condos, right? So people are going to be living there, staying there, wanting a sense of community. So really paying attention to some of that shared space and what that is, whether it's indoor, rooftop, landscape out in the front, that adds to that sense of community, and having neighbors we know is something that really helps with that sense of safety and security as well, and just neighborliness. So whether it's not a required selling point now, it probably will be in the next several years anyway, as competition increases for that type of amenity. So it's both hopefully valuable for the project and then also for this sense of community and safety. So it'd be good to see that.
Can you be more specific? Like, are you looking like jungle gyms or barbecue pits or bocce ball?
Sort of doesn't matter that much. It is all of those things or none of those things. It's something where, if you imagine being a shared kitchen space, might even be one of those things. It's outdoor spaces tend to be really nice. Rooftops feel secure and kind of safe as a space for people to go. But I think it's just some kind of place for kids might be nice. I don't know what your demographic is for this. Probably not too many with kids, but I don't know. So just check your demographics.
3 grandkids.
Yeah, and but to me, it's more just that safety comes from sense of community, and I think that's something Monterey is trying to think of ourselves as a community, tight-knit community space, and obviously some way of doing that rather than people going from their cars to their rooms to somewhere where people can mingle and see each other, especially where it's this far from some of those other urban community spaces.
I know on the previous design that we looked at, there was some discussion about the trash enclosure. I think it was located more in the front area because I believe there were going to be ADA units. And I thought I saw it on the site plan or on the elevation. Is it now more on the side of the project, of the building as opposed to the front, right? Okay.
Since we're gonna have a elevator in this building, so it's down at the garage level. Unless you want it back up.
No,
So you
It's
can
right
see
there
it
on-
here, and then I'll show it on the floor plan as well, but here's the
that's
waste
the
enclosure
west.
site. This would be the access for the just Monterey Disposal Service. And then there's a door on the interior. If I can get there.
It's half the traffic from the elevator all the way to.
Right.
I like that location better. I also like the interior door. That's kind of, when I was single, I lived in places like this and it was not fun to go out at night sometimes to dump my trash. So the interior door is a nice feature.
So Chris, the 484 square feet of open space per unit, that does include each balcony?
Right. And I think it's actually even a little more than that because
Okay.
I don't think that the 144 square feet were included in that calculation. So it's
Okay.
close to 500.
500, okay.
Yeah. And there is a process that's built into the code where an applicant can request an exception from the community development director, an exception, I think, as low as 350 square feet. Obviously, the staff will want as much open space for the residents as we can possibly place on this site. I'll just note, just a kind of a comparison of what the project open space was for the prior project, the conversion project. The prior project maintained these parking spaces in order to meet that parking requirement. And so the open space was really located in the south and east sides, which have a lot more topography. So generally, anyway, the staff was supportive of converting the parking to open space for, of course, obvious reasons, aesthetically, but also it's a more usable open space area based on, the difference in topographies.
And I guess you're going to want to replace even, double the amount of trees anyway to fill that space. I'm not too worried about, hopefully some of those tree removals. It sounds like they're less favorable trees at this point anyway, but so hopefully that's going to be take care of itself with the landscaping going up in the front there.
And are there opportunities to plant trees on the 68 side to obscure the building? Is that part of are there requirements for Highway 68 since it's a scenic highway to obscure a building or and are there opportunities to put trees there?
Yeah, so there are a number of trees there, but there certainly could be more. Yeah, and if that's something the committee wants to discuss more on how the building could be further screened, that would be a good topic to discuss. Whether the whole building should be screened from 68 or from all sides even.
And at some point there will probably be illustrations maybe.
Right.
Or
Renderings?
renderings, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose some sections might help with that. I mean, you have some already, but showing kind of view shed from the road and what trees are there and things like that, just to get a sense of what will be, because I'm guessing this will be one where they don't story pull up the full size again, or will you be requiring that? Yeah, it's
They haven't asked for it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would.
be challenging. So,
Yeah, I would imagine that we've seen a lot of renderings like on billboard size, signs lately, like the hotel on Fremont and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And that might suffice, I would hope, because that would be costly and precarious.
Yes.
Especially if it gets windy.
and I think we're all in favor of trying to get as many units as we can here. And so just as part of that, would you step back, maybe one side of the building favoring the other? What are some of those things that you all have considered or haven't considered, I suppose? Or is this just like, let's float it right now, let's see what everybody thinks of this?
Step back as far as shrink the building.
Transfer some of the square footage to another part of the building that might be less visible or something like that. Obviously, that would make one side higher, but would that make it? I have
I mean, stagger it like
correct. And would that help? Would it not? I'm not in the model or sections and things to tell. So if there's something along those lines that you can do to help us tell the story next time, that would help. It's gonna help alleviate questions and concerns from us or citizens as
Sure.
well.
Yeah.
So
staggering buildings, stepping levels, reducing one load to another.
Brings it up somewhere else.
Raise up, but what it really does is it increases the cost of construction per square foot.
Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, that this project's actually very, very thin. So doing anything that would, even if we tried to build this as just a 2-story, it wouldn't pencil. It wouldn't be buildable. So that's why we've gone to 3. So that's why my main concern here is, are we okay with the 49-foot from base grade to top of structure is one of my main concerns. And then obviously the parking in the front, which I think we've kind of said, hey, no parking in the front. Let's stick with the 48 and get the landscaping in there. Well, sounds great. That's awesome feedback.
I think all I'm saying is we're trying to help you build that argument as well. I think it's good. We want to try and get this density, but help us with that argument to prove what visibility is not, all of those things. Like just have some evidence to help us understand how visible it will be or won't be from.
As far as just like an elevation, I think
On those lines, I know the site goes down from Garden Road street level. What do you happen to know what the elevation would be from Garden Road? Like how
so Garden Road across the parcel actually rises about 9 feet, 10 feet from one end of the parcel to the other. So depending upon where you're at, I believe that you'll see approximately 20 feet on one end and 11 on the other,
okay.
That's it.
from the road.
Yeah, so on the west side, based on their survey data, we're at kind of the west corner of the property. We're looking at close to like a 80 or 75 contour in terms of feet. So if you relate that to what they show on the side here, it's kind of, if you can see where my mouse is, it's kind of anywhere between these two areas is where you would kind of see the finished level of the existing roadway above. So the owners
It'll feel like
generally-
a 2-story building
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
low side. The high side will feel like a 1-story building.
It's a really, as people have mentioned, it's a remote location. People are mainly driving through, barely walk by, barely bike by. I don't see that being a big concern from Garden Road. For me, it'd be more so Highway 68. That's what I'd want to know. It's a scenic area and
Yeah, our landscaping plan will have a ton of
Great.
tree and foliage in that side of the road.
Great, Chris, can you flip maybe back another? Yeah, so this one gives us, right, the north side and the south side. And so something like this, where you then see where the road is, where those cars are, how high those trees are, how much of this is gonna pop out above those trees, that's what's gonna help convince us and I think other citizens, because obviously we don't like to have to field all of those questions and stuff too. We do our best with the trees and all these other things too, but that's whatever, how much you can have that argument built for us, helps.
Perfect. Fair enough. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm okay with, I mean, like I was saying, the 49 feet from Garden Road isn't going to seem like 49 feet at all. But from 68, it is. If actually from 68, if you look at it from the 68 side with this slide that's up, it's actually 4 stories because you've got the parking garage and then you've got 3 stories on top of that. So, just make sure, I don't know how many linear feet it is from the back of the building to actually Highway 68. It's probably over 100 feet, couple hundred feet. So, as long as we have it, pretty well forested and people aren't necessarily on 68 either walking or stopping or sitting on a park bench. So, but yeah, we want to keep it, shielded as much as possible. And it's, I think, yeah, I don't have any problem with the third floor, the height, personally. So I think it's a perfect location to get as many. It's too bad we can't get more units, because of water, but, and cost, but, their hands are tied. So is there any wiggle room for a phase 2 if we build desal or anything like that? Is there any way to, add 10 units to this? Are you guys thinking ahead that much?
We tried to do 66 units on this site. Fernanda and I and others have gone down the water rabbit hole of trying to make it work. On this site specifically, if you try to build half the site and then leave the half of it open, it's incredibly difficult. Water Management District won't allow you to build a building and leave a floor vacant. And anticipation of units down the road. I've gone down every avenue and looked at every possibility of trying to figure something out like that. It's just extremely difficult and economically disaster.
And it's a gamble.
A losing gamble most of the time for now. So it's incredibly hard to wait. We've actually been on this project for a long time and done a bunch of different iterations and gotten quite hurt because of it.
Sorry.
Okay.
Is that, is the open space requirement for any development here in Monterey, like even downtown and all these other areas? I mean,
It
seems like
depends on the zoning.
oh, okay.
Every zoning is different. The multifamily overlay is this 600 per unit. I think that in the R3 zone, which is parts of Old Town and parts of New Monterey, I think it's close to that requirement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because to me, I know that location really well, and I can envision that parking lot, and there's a lot of open space there. So it seems, for it not to be compliant, seems confusing to me. Seems like it pencils out to me, but so thanks.
All right. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Because
Sorry,
Sorry.
I have to point something out.
yeah.
Because there seems to be an inconsistency in the plans. So the site plan says that it's on the site plan. It says 100-foot required setback at the rear. And we do have a general plan policy that says that there is a 100-foot setback from building to the planned right of way of Highway 68. And I wanted to see if Chris if he had anything to add.
Yeah, actually, this length of Highway 68 is not actually designated a scenic highway. It's a
Potential.
potential scenic highway length. So that policy, we had previously talked to the planning manager and director about that and felt that it didn't actually apply, although we had considered it to apply in previous applications.
So it's less than 100 feet in some places.
Right. I don't know off the top of my head. I think in the IR, I think it's 50 feet.
Really? I would have imagined it was much deeper than that, but maybe, I'm not looking at, that's maybe the original building as I remember it and not the new building. Do you guys see that as a problem with planning, building,
No.
any other? Thanks for bringing that up, Fernando. Does that?
Well, I have a question around
satisfy
that.
your-
I'm looking up the exact language of the policy.
Yeah,
Go
we'll
ahead.
want to confirm that policy because I'm not entirely sure it actually makes the distinction on whether or not it's to a designated highway.
Well, and I, because that did come up on a previous project also, and what's the benefit of potential scenic highway if? What does that mean? Is that, does the community generally want the scenic highway designation? Does that give us some distinction? Why would something be called potential? And then we would, I'm a little confused by
Yeah.
that.
And whose jurisdiction is that to determine?
So that's the state makes that distinction on whether or not it's a designated scenic highway. I'm not sure what distinction they use when they're applying the label potentially or designated, but we did just look at the policy. It does make the distinction to a state designated scenic highway. So if this portion of 68 is not currently designated, then it would not apply at this location.
But-
I guess they would be saying that in case people wanted to try to go for the
Maybe it's
scenic highway
maybe it's
distinction. that you
qualified for
could-
one.
Yeah,
Wow.
okay.
Well, can the state go after the applicant and say you can't build this because it's within 100 feet?
No, that's a city's general plan policy.
Okay. So these guys are covered. Shouldn't be a problem.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. You guys have any questions about this? You know about this? All right, all right. All right, anything
You
else?
put it on the site plan.
From the very beginning.
Okay. All right, can we move on to? There was
I
no,
have one last.
oh yeah, go ahead, sure.
Way back when we first started discussing this, there was slight discussion about what kind of things in an open space, what kind of amenities, I guess is what it would be. Just a thought, barbecue pits came up. If you don't have a common place barbecue, a community barbecue area, you're gonna have them on the balconies. So if we want to avoid that, then that might be something we want to consider in the open space community areas. I noticed you have bike parking, which gets the bikes off of the balconies as well, but I like the design and I like that each unit has a balcony, and I would hate to see the balconies junked up, for lack of a better word. So that might be just something you want to consider is actually putting a community barbecue. Otherwise, you're gonna have them on the balconies.
It is very common problem. Obviously, you all are probably well aware of it, and it's at least beneficial that Monterey requires the storage. So hopefully people are mostly storing things there, but you'll probably will still get surfboard, whatever, on these balconies.
Fluorescent kayaks.
Yeah, I mean, some developers will make them opaque so that if people are storing things back there, they're not visible, but I like this design. So I hope you're able to accommodate that and still try and keep them from being jumped up, especially on visible portions.
And that could be addressed with like a property,
Probably.
manager types, you're not allowed to do that, blah, 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 blah. So,
Yeah, just want to say thanks.
Yeah.
This is my first time seeing the design, and I've been as a city employee for
oh, I think they got one more. I'm just kidding.
yeah, that's right. But I'm just excited to see this. Obviously, it's really difficult to build tall buildings, close to the our downtown, and but we need housing, and this road could use some revitalization, and it's pretty shoddy. I run there all the time because the bike lane's really wide, but I hope will bring some momentum for the rest of the street. So thank you.
Okay, any other comments on item 3? Let's move to item 4. Consider 2560 and Mr. Schmidt, I think you're in the driver's seat again.
I hope.
Nope.
Um, hmm, oh, okay, I need to share my screen. Um, where do I go to share? I am sharing? Oh,
I see your cursor.
okay. Oh, wait, now I am, right? Okay.
You're a little rusty, huh?
Um, um, that one? Okay. Okay. Hello, my name is Fernanda Roveri, Principal Planner for the City of Monterey, and I'm covering for Matthew Buggert, Associate Planner. He reviewed this project, but he is currently unavailable, so I'm presenting for him. And I was also the project planner for the original design for this project, so I am familiar with the site. Although the site has changed somewhat, the previous plan for this site was only to build at 2600 Garden Road, and now this current design is merging both lots 2560 and 2600 for a larger development. And this project, or this review, is also to gather your design feedback today. And so it's we're seeking the same from the ARC. We are seeking design feedback, and that you consider the policies and development standards that apply. Like Chris mentioned, the city council approved an amendment that allows up to 405 multifamily residential units to be located on the south side of Garden Road. None of these have been built to date. And so the proposal at 2560 and 2600 Garden Road would add a total of 36 units. And separate projects at these properties have come before you. 2600 Garden Road came before you in 2022. And it was a very different project. It was a total of, if I remember correctly, 57 apartment units distributed into 5 different apartment buildings. And for the 2560 Garden Road site, it was a completely different owner at the time. But in January of 2023, the ARC approved 25 unit apartment building, a conversion project at 2560 Garden Road. But that is completely changing today. So the project would include both properties, as I mentioned. They would be 18 two-story, 3-bed, 2.5 bath townhouse duplexes for a total of 36 units. And the site is sandwiched between Garden Road and Highway 68, since the 2 lots would be merged for this project. And this is Matthew's doing.
Nice, nice special effects.
I can't do this. Okay, so this is the site plan. So there would be a single driveway in the middle of the site coming from Garden Road. all the way south toward the back of the property. And then you would have basically 5 rows of townhomes. And then on the southwest side, there is a park with some play equipment, and it hasn't been defined yet, but that would make up the largest portion of the open space requirement. Yes, that's just what I said. And then there are 2 schemes proposed, Scheme A and Scheme B, and they look slightly different, but very similar. So Scheme A is on the left, and they would all be roughly the same building height and square footage, but there's just some different modulation on the facade, as you can see. But again, they would both have, all townhomes would have 2-car garages and 2 stories, and the same number of bedrooms and bathrooms. So these are the elevations for Scheme A. Some siding and board and batten. I didn't look through the details, but that would also be further defined if this becomes an architectural review permit application. That's just zooming in. And this is a floor plan of the first floor of Scheme A. Like I mentioned, a 2-car garage with a bedroom or office at the ground floor, and the living space at the ground floor, and then the stairs that lead up to the 2nd story would have 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. And I believe the half bath, yes, the half bath is on the ground floor. And then each unit would have laundry inside of it and storage, separate storage. So that would meet the laundry and storage requirements. And Scheme B is very similar. Just again, the modulation is slightly different, but again, the materials are almost identical. Almost the same floor plan, 2-car garages. That some might be a little bigger than others, like the office / bedroom here is bigger on the right. But again, same concept. Also having laundry and storage in each unit. And there are decks included. Yeah, it looks like one unit, the one on the left has a deck and the other one does not, but the applicant can speak more to that. So on the left side is Garden Road, and then on the right side is going toward Highway 68. And Matthew noted that the elevation close to Garden Road is 246 feet. Close to Highway 68, it goes down to 200 feet. And the length of the both sites together is 575 feet. So at he pointed out that there's an 8-foot retaining wall holding the dirt between these two townhomes. And then a big, about 18-foot retaining wall at the very right. So this would be what I imagine would be fill. But we would need a grading plan and cut and fill amounts to better understand where the dirt is going to and leaving. And so the way that we measure building height is we measured to the lowest grade, whether that's existing or proposed. So according to this cross section, the lowest grade is the existing. And then we measure to the top of the highest roof ridge. And so that would be a measurement of 45 feet, 9 inches. So that would exceed the 35-foot height limit. However, the building itself would only be 27 feet, 9 inches tall. And in the report, there is a consistency checklist. So it's consistent with most of our zoning standards. However, the setbacks, it's inconsistent with some of the setbacks. The front setback is 50 required, but the proposal is 26 feet, 4 inches. And I can go back to that if you need. The side setback is 50 required, but it's much less than that is proposed. It's about 12 to 11 feet. The rear setback. So Matthew was reading that general plan policy and applying it here. So that policy says 100 feet required, but this, I guess it wouldn't apply to this site. I'm just not very familiar, but we can double check on that. The height is 35 feet maximum, but 45 feet, 9 inches is proposed. And there are at least 56 trees proposed for removal. And so there is a section of our code that says groups of trees or groups of Monterey pine and cypress and coast live oaks should be retained. But there is an exception that if the trees are dying or are in poor condition, there's the possibility that they can be removed. So that we would need more information and an updated tree report. And other considerations, like I mentioned, the grading, cut and fill are not shown. And so we would need that information to understand the resulting slopes and retaining walls. Pervious versus impervious surfaces are not shown. And so we would need that to understand the stormwater requirements that would apply. Open space areas will need to be measured and defined, and that includes private open space like decks and balconies versus public open space like the park. A parking count will be required, and parking dimensions will need to be shown in order to make sure that a proposal complies with our parking dimension standards. And like I said, an updated updated tree report is required to understand the health of the remaining trees. And replacement tree ratios. And crime prevention through environmental design will need to be incorporated. So that again includes lighting and having eyes on the street, etc. and architectural style and finishes will need to be further defined. Like committee members Schmidt mentioned, details for a barbecue area or usable space will be required, and proposed trash enclosure and collection information will also be required. And so with that, we are seeking design feedback, and the applicants and owners' representatives are here.
Thank you, Fernanda. Can you go back to the kind of aerial view? I don't know how easy it is to go backwards.
Toward the beginning.
Yeah, so we can kind of have that, yeah, well,
Oh.
that's that view without the different. Yeah, keep going. That'll
That
do.
one?
Okay, just leave that up for me if you don't mind. So I don't see any additional parking at all.
DHF garages.
Right, but I mean, where do guests park?
Oh.
I'm just curious if there,
We only identified the 2-car garage for each unit, and then 2 driveway spaces in front of each garage, but so we need more information. So
okay.
that's why we need the parking spaces identified and dimensioned, so that we understand where all the parking is gonna go.
And then the side setbacks are like 12 feet.
That's what Matthew measured, and it looks really tight.
Yeah,
So if you see the property line here and the wall, I can't make out that measurement, but it's much less than 50 feet.
and right now, is there anything on either side of this property,
Building?
buildings?
Yes. I believe it's a church.
Oh,
Sorry.
Church on the bottom side, hotel top right,
Mhm.
and a gym, commercial building top left.
all right. I'll open it up for questions for Fernanda.
Well, one of the first slides mentioned something about these being consistent, and some of that was density and stuff too. Can you just help us understand that a little better?
Oh, yeah.
Seems a little seems maybe not dense given the context or something, but
Oh, okay.
curious to understand that.
Oh, look, sorry, other way. Okay. So the lot sizes, the lots will be merged. I don't know where that stands, but that would be required for this development to happen. The lot coverage, there is a lot coverage percentage. And let me see what page. that's-
It's that density is just based on the lot sizes or the area plan, both.
The density?
Yeah.
Oh, the density is 30 dwelling units per acre. That's the maximum. But,
After the lot merger, how big will the parcel be after the lot merger?
228. 226,000 square feet. It's on,
Just over 5 acres.
5 acres.
Did that answer your question?
I guess, not exactly.
Okay.
But I guess it's, you're saying it is consistent with the area plan for this region. It's meeting the density and not exceeding, I guess is the,
right, the maximum density allowed is 30 dwelling units per acre, and they're proposing 7 dwelling units per acre density. So it's a lot lower than the maximum.
Yeah. Are we in the period to ask the applicant as well questions? Are we, how?
Well,
Formal.
any other questions for now? You're going to be here anyway. So why don't you guys come back up? Brad Slamma and Paul Davis. And Fernando will be here for questions if we need. So yeah, you guys go ahead and
Yeah, give us
your spiel.
Yeah.
Main concerns for this one are trees. This is a removal of quite a few trees. They are the same grade as the previous site, dead to poor, fair at best. And then the retaining wall at the bottom is 68. That is something that is a necessity to be able to develop in that area down there to get up to grade to height. It becomes a sewer issue.
Accessibility.
A lot of issues. So as you saw with the car condo that was built in Ryan Ranch and that big wall that you see, that's essentially the style of an 18-foot, not quite the 32-foot that is or so. But 18-foot, that's what you would see. We'll be able to cover it with foliage and everything from 68 view, and you won't be able to see it from really anywhere else.
And what's, we had to deal with a sewer line, city sewer line that goes through the site. So that's where the park is, and then we had to place 1 or 2 lots a little bit, to miss that.
It's one of the most difficult strategic layouts we've ever had to deal with because of the way it bisects right through the middle and then doesn't just go straight. It has to angle off and just, it's incredibly difficult. You can't build on top of it. You got to stay 10 feet from each side of it. It's a challenge.
We could have moved, we would move, 2 of the units away from Highway 1 and put it where the park is now,
Yeah.
because that's where that's sewer line goes.
In regards to density, I would prefer to be at 12 to 14 units an acre. That's a very buildable product. Unfortunately, topography makes it difficult when we're talking about the type of units that we have there. And 2, again, water constraints. We've tried to go for this for 6 years for extra water.
You couldn't increase.
We can. We lose bathrooms. You lose, usability of units. So you're looking at 3-bedroom, 2.5 baths here in units versus 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments, and the balance that we need on sites to create, all types of living for all types of people. So the maximum for the site as it sits right now with the water you could have would be, you could get to 65 1-bathroom units. So that's where the math kind of lays out.
And then with the land plan, we tried a lot of different ways of how to get in and out and circulate. And so we settled on this one coming down the center, especially for safety for kids on these little side. They're almost like alleyways, but they're regulation in width. But you just won't have cars going down. So it helps to distribute everybody out along the spine and gives a little bit of safety. On the architecture, we thought that we're creating a community, and so we want to maybe place a design style that would fit into that urban forest that's around in this whole area. And so that's where the design concept came up for the design of the units.
I think the tees are specifically important. Myself having 2 kids that are 11 and 9, they will use the end of that tee for basketball or hockey or whatever it is. And the only people that will be driving on there are the residents that live at that end. So it's almost like a cul-de-sac in a community. So I really like that design function.
So you guys stick around. I just want to move on to public comments just because then we can just start talking about it really. So are there any public comments on this project? This item number 4? Anybody online?
And there are no attendees with their hands
Okay,
raised
so-
online.
Now we can go. You guys can come back up. So I have another question. How just approximately how many feet is it from that 18-foot retaining wall to like the shoulder of Highway 68? It's like
Is it 58?
50, okay, so
58.
it's
I think 58.
like from here to the door.
But also, on the site plan, there is the silhouette of the existing building,
Yeah.
and we're sitting right where that existing building.
Is that one of the old Trident buildings?
No, the next.
Oh, that's
property
down, the next one down, right. But that one's at grade, that one's not raised
It's a
18
concrete
feet.
wall. It looks essentially the same.
Okay.
As you're looking at it from 68, it'll look almost
I see,
identical to what it
but
is right
that's the actually building, it's not a retaining wall.
now. Yeah, it's an actual building.
Got it. Okay.
Let me see, yeah, the closest we are to the property line along Highway 68 is
58.
58 feet.
Okay,
So I don't know where,
so it's another 10, 15 feet to the
Yeah.
shoulder of the road or whatever. Okay.
But room to plant
All kinds.
trees.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
even terrace perhaps if you wanted to, which might reduce cost anyway, whatever, but so, okay. Okay, that was a good
And
one.
each unit will have a driveway in front of the garage door.
Yes.
So when grandma comes over to visit, that she can park.
That's the most important thing.
There's
to me,
no
yeah.
street parking at all.
What you see in a lot of these hyper dense developments where you talk 15, 20 units an acre and we have these, real tight 3-story verticals is you have a 3-foot drive strip, 2-foot drive strip garage, and then the road's right there.
Right.
There's literally no room. But yeah, these have essentially front driveways and small front yards as well.
No storage requirements.
The house has a garage. The house has,
That's just what typically happens. People are going to fill up the garage and then they park the
yeah,
cars.
we have the required closet, and it's in.
It's just
it's in the
closets.
garage.
Yeah, it's just closets.
Usually it's supposed to be outside.
So in my opinion was I liked Plan B or whatever that was. It had an extra gable. I like the 2 gables
Layout
where
B.
it looked balanced. I don't know. It's probably more expensive, but I liked it.
okay.
But that wasn't, those aren't options for us. Those are,
Well, I mean,
It can be.
they're looking for input.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
if I had to choose, I'd go with the B. They looked very similar, but I like the 2 gables.
Appreciate
versus
the
one
feedback.
gables.
Definitely.
I mean, we would still want to have the 2
Variations.
plans, but we're still working on the other.
Are you saying you're gonna have both?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I got it.
Just for
Yeah, to mix it up. I thought you were asking us to pick one or the other. I got you. So each one is gonna be a little bit different.
Yeah, and probably
makes sense.
maybe three separate color schemes. I don't know.
Yeah, so it'll look.
There will be variation, definitely.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
good.
I have a question for Fernanda or one of staff. I saw something in the staff report where it talked about affordability in exchange for incentives. I'm not familiar with that, so could you just expand on that just a little bit? Because it looks like they're gonna need side yard variances and maybe even a front yard and rear yard. They're gonna need variances to meet setbacks, correct? So is that something they can exchange for an affordable unit? I'm not sure how that works.
So our affordable housing requirement is when you have a development that proposes 6 or more housing units, the affordability requirement kicks in and the developer is required to provide 20% of the units as affordable. And that is a mix of low and moderate affordability. And then, but we don't have that information in front of us right now. So we know that we only know the numbers. So if they're proposing 36 units, 20% of that would be affordable in perpetuity, but we don't know. I mean, it has to be basically a 50-50 mix of low versus moderate income affordability. But there's a state density bonus law that grants incentives to or waivers. So there's 2 types, and in this case, they would benefit from applying for a waiver of the setback. And there is no limit to the number of waivers. But again, they have to provide a certain number of affordable units in order to qualify for the waivers. And then there's incentives which are slightly different, but they get up to 4 incentives. But again, it's based on the number of affordable units that they propose. So if the more affordable units that they propose, the more incentives that they get. And so maybe an incentive could be they get a greater building height, because they're proposing more affordable units. But since we don't have those numbers defined right now, we can't really tell how many incentives that they will get. But ideally, since the code does require that minimum 20% affordability, then they will get at least, I don't know off the top of my head, but at least 1 or 2 incentives, because they're providing that 20% minimum.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just add for a little additional context, as Fernanda mentioned, that comes from the state density bonus law. So that does kind of allow the developer, based on affordability, proposed to, as Fernanda mentioned, to get waivers or concessions to development standards that are city development standards. And as she mentioned, those can be pretty nuanced, the difference between the two. But basically meeting the bare minimum affordability requirements for the city, which they'll be required to do, will grant them likely 2 incentives to any development standard that the city has. As Fernanda mentioned, they could go beyond the bare minimum of affordability of that 20% if they so choose, and then that could possibly give them additional incentives. But right now, we're just working off that bare minimum assumption of the 20%.
So does staff see any stumbling blocks coming from this 50-foot side setback being reduced to 12 feet? Is that going to be a problem?
Do you mind just
Oh.
actually, if you could just flip to that slide, if you have it available, the inconsistencies slide?
Okay.
I think that's a lot of good questions there.
And now's probably also an appropriate time to mention, since we're talking about setbacks. So we did confirm that, so the Caltrans map is a little bit contradictory as far as state designated scenic highways and eligible. But we were able to pull the actual designation documentation from 1968 that does say that state Route 68 in that location is designated. So that policy from the general plan, the 100-foot setback, would apply. However, it is also, should also be noted that is also a standard that could potentially be waived through the density bonus affordability that's provided. So
And you just figured that out just now.
just now.
Wow, you guys are good. So you're looking for a slide? Oh, well, there was a one that had is that the one you wanted, or the one that had the actual, the linear footage?
No, just the slide that said inconsistent.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. Because those are significant, and I think you were
Yeah.
going to talk about some of those. Yeah.
I mean, is that going to be a problem? I mean, that seems like a huge jump, 40 feet jump from 50 feet to 12 and to 11. Especially, if the next door neighbors say, well, they got to build their building, 12 feet from the fence, how come we can't? So I don't know how that works. Is that setting the precedent that we shouldn't set?
So the setback going down to 12 feet, that again would be one of the incentives, I think, or waivers of development standards that we would apply, because it is variances are difficult to come by. So waivers, by providing the minimum 20% affordable units, we would probably encourage them to apply for the side setback waiver. And then the height, that could also be another one. The front setback, that there are 2, so there's a 50-foot front setback requirement, but there's also another requirement that says no parking shall be located in the front setback. So they would have to request 2 waivers for the front to put their buildings at 26 feet from the front instead of 50. So that is a little more difficult. We would have to work that out with the applicant.
And then with the height, doesn't take into consideration that they're increasing the grade 18 feet. And why don't we consider that? Because it seems like it's a 27-foot building, yet we're saying it's 45 feet.
Sorry, did you say, why we?
Yeah, like the back building, it said from grade, but they're gonna fill that in 18 feet. And then the actual building is only gonna be 27 feet. So why is there, why is that inconsistent when their plan shows that the grade is gonna be raised?
We go by our definition of building height in the code,
Yeah,
which says that building height is measured from the lowest grade to the highest point of the roof.
but they're changing the grade.
Right, so then our definition says we measure from the lowest grade, whether that's existing or proposed.
I got you. Okay. Any other questions about setbacks?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I guess this is more for that applicant, and we talked about this a little bit, sort of the density question, style of these buildings. I'm not seeing affordable housing there. Maybe you're just gonna make some of them affordable, which is done. Is there a reason why perhaps another style that might fit within the setbacks or something like that wasn't selected? Just
Sure. The site setbacks, the only way to build these kind of units is to take advantage of the site setback incentive as opposed to variance. So when it comes to the question of, when a neighbor says, well, they're built 11 feet, how come I can't? Well, if you're commercial or industrial, you apply by the same code. You don't have a state variance that allows. If they want to go and build residential, hey, you can do the same thing. So you're afforded the same opportunity. Easy conversation, I think, there. When it comes to, the density, I think is your question about.
well, yeah, let me clarify. Yeah, you keep saying it's this type of unit.
Product, right.
And so why this type of unit rather than a different one? Like
This
it-
type of unit rather than, okay, so
Yeah.
the two options, you have something that could be similar to 2300 Garden Road, which we're currently building right now, where you have 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, 600 square foot unit versus this at a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2.5 bath with a garage and a driveway and, a completely different type of living, a family type of living, right? My goal is to build all product types, not just as many units as we can crammed into the small space. So I say we have 2300, which has 64 1-bedroom, 1-baths. We have 2000 that has 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And now we have this location that has 3 bedrooms. We're meeting all types on Garden Road and not just pigeonholing everybody to the same exact demographic, same exact size. And that's so, and there's some economic components of that as well. This project as delivered will do well, as opposed to 2000 Garden Road, which will not do well. They'll kind of offset each other. And then 2300 kind of lies right in the middle. Could we get more dense with a product type that still had 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath? Yes. You start getting into, if you guys are familiar with the, townhomes that they're building in the Bay Area, 3-story, they put the front doors literally 5 feet off the street. So your front doors could be 5 feet off Garden Road. And then they have the alleys and tighten everything up and you can get much higher in density. We don't have the water, nor do we have, I don't like that kind of sardine living. It's not my standard of what I want to build in this area. So I prefer to build something that, a family with 2 kids could feel comfortable that, I would like to either rent here or own. And I think it's a good spot for it.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a joke. We're known for our sardines. So
Good one.
Okay, that's helpful. I think understanding that where you're coming from, you want a diversity of sales types. This seems like one that would be added value to the community. It seems like a lot of variance for not as many units, I guess, is what we're what I think we're trying to grapple with.
Yeah.
A number of variants for not as many units that the city would get and that sort of thing. But I think I'm starting to understand, and I speak for myself, that those reasons and why these different variances, but that's helpful to understand.
Sure. Yeah, I disagree with the height variance. I think that's a technicality versus a realistic thing. You've got just the back row at the bottom that has, a step up. And so it might be technically one, but I think that we're well into the code with the majority of the units, and in reality at 27 feet on all of them, we're there. The side setbacks is definitely the main one, a part of this conversation and why we did it, why we made it wide, and why we have the alleys or the dead ends that we have.
Oh, actually, sorry, that just reminded me before I forget that, is that fire code? Are they gonna allow?
Yeah, so it's really close. We're just over the threshold
Barely.
of 150 feet. Most jurisdictions will allow a variance. I haven't had a chance to talk to the fire chief about it, but I don't think it'll be an issue.
Okay, and then you're right. I mean, the tree removal is going to be
Immense.
a challenge.
Yes.
In this community, and we'll want to see some favorable, I guess,
Ratios.
conditions. Yeah, from you all to as a first step. I mean, just reach out and try to meet some of those things.
Yeah, so two things. We have a decent amount of site where we can replant trees. But we also would like to meet a minimum of 3-to-1 ratio on this. And we have a site that we are purchasing where we have a large amount of mitigation bank that we will be able to provide mitigation at. So close by. So
you
I think
can-
that'll end up
You
working
could
out.
plant offsite and meet.
On-site and off-site.
and
I don't think we can get to on-site the exact tree
Yeah.
type and quantity at a 3-to-1 ratio.
Yeah,
But with off-site, we can bridge the gap and make it work.
Yeah, and I just, my understanding is planning department's pretty open to those. I don't want to speak out of turn, obviously, but I think there's some ability to do that and discuss, even if it's another adjacent project and things like that, that it's something that you can accommodate. I don't think I have any more questions.
I appreciate hearing your kind of general plan and thinking of, and I think that would be important to bring up at the beginning of all your, talks with staff and getting out to the communities like you're doing it. Like we're looking to, we don't want to just have a low income party row, on Garden Road. We want to have, families that are entrenched and nice houses and, with teachers, cops, firemen, and lawyers and doctors and, restaurant workers and hotel workers. And, we need to get cars off Highway 1 and get people, into units. So I really appreciate hearing that. I think, I would like to hear more about the third property and what you're, I'd like to hear the whole package. And I really love what you guys are doing with Garden Road. So
The 2300?
Yeah.
Oh, in progress. We've actually come before this committee before and
Right.
gotten the final for
I just can't remember what
We're
we've-
so 64 one-bedroom units, and we should be online Q1 2025 opening. So
And then what are the next steps for these two projects? I mean, how far away are you, like, as far as like,
if we have a consensus about both projects, I feel like we're pretty close to an understanding. But so this 2600 would be the one that would be pressed first. Planning, we could probably get through planning by the end of the summer, and then be building by spring 2025.
Okay.
And then the 2000 Garden would follow behind in a stagger.
And sorry for my ignorance, is this all based on water coming online, like with the expansion of,
Finances and workload.
but what about with water
they've
Oh,
got water, right?
We have the water credits that we need to build the units now that we're proposing.
for all these projects?
Yes,
Wow.
each individual site has its own water credits that it had when it was a building, and we've just been reusing that.
Thank you.
Can I ask what contractors you use?
We use, I'm a GC myself, so I GC all my own projects, and then we use subcontractors along the way.
So my question for you is there any other feedback that you have
Uh,
or questions that you would
Yeah,
like
good
our
question.
feedback on?
For this site, I think the main thing was really the retaining wall and the side setbacks. I feel like the side setbacks with the neighboring use types that are there are nothing that's going to be an issue. If I was, owning any of the parcels, I wouldn't have a concern. And then, but the big one for me is the trees and the wall. And so if we're generally comfortable with the screening and the mitigation measures that are required by the city for the trees, to essentially redo this site into something that'll be around for 100 years, then I think that we're there.
I'm very familiar. I used to work on Garden Road, very close to this site.
Okay.
I don't have an issue with the setbacks, mostly because the setbacks are for industrial kind of zoning, and we're talking about residential. So I myself don't have an issue with the setbacks. I think that could be resolved through the affordability incentive kind of thing. So these buildings have been kind of in disrepair, and the storms haven't helped with the trees falling over and whatnot. So I'm very anxious to see and looking forward to seeing the final product.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think of these as revitalization. I think it's positive. It's really good to see the effort and these being brought online. Regarding the setbacks, could staff address that? Is that true that these were setbacks set for a different type of zoning than what is being proposed? And so that's what we're dealing with?
Sure. So this area of town is as industrial zoning. And then in 2019, the multifamily overlay was applied to this area to further facilitate residential development in the city. And it did not alter the setbacks in that. It just
Okay, and so that, but
allowed the use in the at that density.
and residential setbacks are usually closer to what they're
Where
proposing.
it gets a little bit complicated is that industrial uses are still very much allowed and permitted uses throughout that area. And so it kind of, the setbacks were left there to maintain that assurance between what may be a light industrial use on one property to a residential use on the adjacent property. So as you can imagine, if you have 10-foot setbacks on each side with an industrial use on one property and a residential use on the other, that would not be an adequate distance from use to use. So
Yeah, and as you were saying, I mean, right now it seems fine, but I suppose there's
In the future, it could.
future.
Correct. If
something-
the church was to go away and a Pepsi distributing plant came in and they started distributing, there would only be 66 feet of buffer as opposed to 100.
Can that be resolved with like a buyer beware condition of rental? I mean, you have the airport right there too. So you're
Yeah.
gonna have the airport noise, and during, with the military jets coming in and out, it's
So on Olive Garden Road with the residential, we have SCT requirements, which are sound transfer requirements that are heightened due to the fact that we're at the airport. We're at 35 requirement. We've actually found a product out of Poland for all of our windows and patio doors that's meaning 42 that's actually feasible. So we're getting very high on the STC coverage side of things. So from a noise standpoint, they're pretty well protected.
Is that decibels? Like 42 decibels or?
No, it's a sound transfer
Okay.
way of weighing it.
I see.
The technicality of exactly what it is, but the requirement that we have is 35 and we're able to exceed it. So
But if something was to go in another, next door and it was a commercial building, they would still be held to 50 feet. And so, yeah, I mean, they're not going to get the same deal because they're not residential. So,
correct. And as it was mentioned earlier, we don't have exact affordability numbers at this point, and we have not received a formal request under the state density bonus law for any incentives or waivers. So this is all kind of estimates at this point.
yeah.
But yes, you're right.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Concerns? Thank you, Mr. Slama.
thank you. That's
Mr.
exactly what we
Davis.
hope for. Appreciate it.
Okay, good. Say hi to Bree. Staff comments, reports, anything upcoming? Planning office update?
We don't have any scheduled items for the next meeting, but that doesn't mean that something won't come up.
Okay.
So just make sure that you let Spencer know if you're gonna be attending the next meeting or not.
Well, how do we know if there's going to be a meeting?
Oh, Um,
Let's-
so usually
gonna
our
be-
projects require noticing, so you'll know the Friday 2 Fridays before the meeting.
So we'll know by the 29th whether there will be a March 6th meeting. Is that correct?
No,
Spencer? No.
before,
Oh, the March 13th. The second?
oh.
Oh,
um, Oh, it's this
it would be
Friday.
the 23rd for the March 6th would be the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, guys? Meeting's adjourned.
He doesn't like.
Oh.